What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I wanted to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the overall markets, and break down what's happening with the economic calendar moving forward. Talk about other factors out there which you should be watching for as time goes on. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Webull link. If you deposit any amounts of money, you're guaranteed 12 free stocks. If you deposit $500, you're guaranteed 20 in total. And deposit $2,000 or more, and you're guaranteed 40. The offer ends very soon, in just about 6 days from now. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So, as far as NIO goes, we're seeing some buyers who tried to come back to defend it as we got some bullish news. NIO is going to be launching a much more competitive version of their Envo SUV. And this is very, very big news that just came out. They have a new secret weapon that's going to be used once again for their more affordable brand known as Envo, starting at about $21,000 USD. They're launching the Envo L60. They made that announcement last month. And on top of this, it's going to be a very, very big competitor. Now, that's very, very interesting to hear about. But one other thing that's worth noting is that their second electric SUV is coming out. They're going to be launching one new model every year, according to their reports. This year was the L60, but next year they're going to be expecting another mid to large sized electric SUV. It's going to be not only more affordable, but it's going to be leading to more surprises, especially as we see delivery scheduled for Q3 of 2025. This is why the share price saw a nice push. They look very luxurious on the inside. And this one's going to be starting at just under $42,000. That's what reports are suggesting. I think that's very, very bullish news. They also mentioned the fact that there's going to be offering different prices depending on the variants, such as the battery rental model and other factors like that could be between $20,000 $31,000 USD. So this is what the starting prices are looking like depending on which battery that you are using. And there's going to be a lot more affordable variations of them. Their goal is to become not only a lot more affordable, but it's going to incentivize a lot more sales through that. So that's some interesting news in my personal opinion. This is why NIO saw a little bounce today after this news came out, despite the downside metrics. That doesn't necessarily mean the share price is saved from more downside. So, what else is happening for the week? I'll talk about that first before I break down more details about NIO stock. Just know that for the upcoming week, on Monday, we have very minor manufacturing numbers coming out in the morning. For Tuesday, we have some JOLTS job openings reports and consumer confidence that's coming out. We'll see what that leads to as well. For Wednesday, we have the GDP numbers. That's going to be very important for the way things end up developing. And then for Thursday, we have the PCE data report coming out. That's going to be very important for understanding inflationary data, followed by Friday's unemployment rate. So we have important data coming out from Wednesday through Friday. The first couple of days are going to be a little bit more minor, so just keep that in mind. Also, when it comes to earnings, I just wanted to call out that we have very important earnings coming out for the week. So remember, Wednesday through Friday are going to be more important for economic data, but for earnings as a whole, Monday is a little bit more minor. We just have Ford and a few others, nothing too crazy. Tuesdays when we get a little bit more serious, since we have PayPal and AMD also announcing earnings. For Wednesday, we have a few such as Microsoft, Meta, and Coinbase. So we're going to be looking at a lot of big tech earnings. And then for Thursday, we have Amazon, Apple, and Intel. So we're going to be looking for some high volatility between Tuesday and Thursday for the broader markets, especially for tech as we have big tech earnings. Now, so far, the market's at greed, but it's getting closer to neutral as we're starting to see a little bit of a shift as we're range bound. Momentum is just at greed, and we're also seeing a little bit of a shift right here in the put and call option ratio. We're seeing more puts being bought, some shorts are entering the market as we're seeing it dip a bit more. And the VIX is just barely holding its 50 daily moving average. We'll have to see if that ends up holding as well. So the market's shifting a little bit, becoming a little bit less confident than before. JP Morgan gives NIO an overweight rating. And besides that, there's not really a whole lot else that's shifting. The price price ratio is dipping so far. And also don't forget that Mondays tend to be weaker days for NIO, but Tuesdays and Wednesdays tend to be stronger. Volume is at about 65 million because we saw a lot of buyers step in. Now the question is what's going to happen from this point on. So as far as NIO goes, we are attempting to rebound, but just be very mindful of the fact that despite the fact that it could rebound a bit more, there's a much larger downtrend that's being established right here. And it's still a possibility that this is going to be establishing a head and shoulders. This could be like a left shoulder here. This could be a head, and we could be starting to form a right shoulder for a little bit more upside before we continue to dip lower. So just keep that in mind. I think that NIO could be pushing a little bit higher for about 5.2 to 5.4, but then keep in mind the head and shoulders is still a valid argument. There's still a good chance that that could end up panning out. So we'll see how things end up going. Just know that there are risks involved for NIO, and with the head and shoulders forming, we'll have to see how things end up going. For other factors out there, we also have SPY. SPY is in a very, very important shop zone. Just know that so far we haven't been able to crack past the 585 area. And we are looking a little bit weaker. Every time we've tried to rebound, we're getting rejected. Also, if you look at the wedge, we are still in a very, very interesting phase where we are, uh, excuse me, trying to break through it. But you guys can see that we've broken below this. We've attempted to rebound only to reject off of it. This could be a sign of weakness that's developing on SPY, despite the fact that it's trying to rebound. So I anticipate there's going to be a little bit more downside going into Monday. We could be retesting 577.5. There may be an attempt to rebound off of that as you remain sideways for the time being, but there is still that risk of downside off this rising wedge. So just be very careful. Maybe after the election, we do get that sell off. It's still a strong possibility, as we have a lot of gaps to fill on SPY in the 560s, also around the 550s. For ES, the same thing is happening. We were attempting to push. We're in a possible topping process here. We'll have to see how the election affects us. We might tip a little bit more towards the 58.20 area before we attempt to rebound. But I think we're still in this very, very important shop zone. We still have this gap to fill way down here. So I think we will eventually get that sell off. But the question is, when's it going to start? It may start right before, if not a little bit after the election. That's one possibility. Maybe a little bit later. So we'll see. But keep that in mind, guys. There's some weakness that's building. As far as Nvidia goes, we're doing a good job at holding up above our 20 EMA. That's currently at 140.8. If we hold that, we could continue to push. If not, there's going to be a dip coming that's even lower, so keep that in mind. Bitcoin is trying to rebound. We could be looking for an attempt for 68,000, but just be mindful of the fact that we are forming a nice kind of like inverse cup and handle like structure. So if we don't break the highs of 69,000, we could kind of pop and then drop and start dipping back down towards lower levels. For Tesla's looking bullish right now. We pumped very nicely, but be a little bit careful with one thing. We are at some very, very tough resistance around the 270 area. So if we break that, we're looking for a much bigger push for 275. If not, we could be dipping. So my gut tells me Tesla might dip a little bit and try to retest 265, if not the breakout area all over again. And we'll see if we get a bounce off that area. Look for a small dip and we'll see if we get a bounce. If we get that bounce, we're looking for a big rebound to once again retest the highs. If not, this could be dipping. So keep that in the back of your guys' minds. For NQ, we have a bearish divergence that's developing. We attempted to push only to dip back down, so I do expect this to dip a little bit more towards 20,415. I think that this is going to be retesting its 1520 EMAs, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get after that. For the QQQ, we pumped very nicely, but look at this resistance at 500. I was talking about how that's a tough resistance. We're looking for a test of 492, maybe a little bit lower before it attempts to rebound again. So far, we're just in a choppy range, but there is that risk of a rejection off the bearish divergence. For Apple's once again at that high at 237. We've been making lower highs at least thus far. We could attempt to push a little bit higher for about 233, and we'll see if you reject or not. But be very, very careful as time goes on. For other factors out there, I wanted to mention that we also have Amazn. Amazon's trying to hold its support around that 187 area. If that holds, we could try to push a little bit higher for 190 approaching earnings, but then earnings will determine what this ends up doing. For Meta, we pushed very nicely. It's about 576. If we don't reclaim that, there's a risk of it dipping back down to the gap fill for 568. Microsoft has earnings coming up. That's why it's pushing very nicely. We could see an attempt to get up to 432, and we'll see if it rejects or not. So give that some time. And then Google is doing a good job. It's just range bound for the time being. We have 168 as our resistance and then 165 as our support. So we remain range bound for the time being. With that being said, I thank you all so much for listening. I want to make this video kind of short, but going into next week, we have big earnings coming out and some important data between Wednesday and Friday. So get ready for all of that. NIO might rebound a little bit. It might try to push for about 5.4, but be careful because there's a possible head and shoulders developing on NIO that could lead to later downside. So even if we do push a bit, be careful. The share price still looks kind of bearish to me, especially as the market could be shifting in its cycle, which could drag NIO down. I want to give you guys a very unbiased analysis and a very unbiased warning, so please keep that in mind. Anyways, I'll see you guys again in just about a couple of days. By Sunday, I'll be back with another video. Until then, I hope you guys have a great day and peace out.